going on, guys? Today we're taking apart our Benchmade 940 because I believe that there are some busted springs in here. All right, these axis lock knives take 2 Omega springs, and as I was pointing out in the last video, you can send this back to Benchmade and it is covered. All right, they will replace the springs for free. It's just a matter of how long it takes for the knife to get to them, how long it sits there for them to get to it and then send it back. So there's a kind of a longer turnaround time because they're a much larger company. So the only real reason that you would want to do this yourself is just to save time. That is it. All right, so I ended up buying some aftermarket Omega springs. I don't know if these are actually from Benchmade or someone just replicated them, but we're gonna try them out. I think the total price was like 12 bucks after tax and shipping and stuff, but generally they're gonna be like $6 or $7 for a pair. So actually, let's leave. Let me take them out and put them on the bag, so at least they're easy to get to. All right. So this is what they look like, in case you haven't seen them before. Give a quick little zoom. All right, this small little hook part hooks around the post for the lock. So on the inside, hooks around that, and then is set in place over here. All right. So as you move the lock up and down, essentially you're squeezing this together like that. Okay, so when you let go of it, it always wants to pop back up, or in this case, just in the locked position. Okay, so let's put these off to the side here and go ahead and start taking the knife apart. So again, it is my assumption that the Omega springs are broken because this really moves back and forth. But once we open up, we're gonna find out for sure. So first thing I wanna do is take apart the body screws, or take out the body screws. All right. Of course, you always want to make sure that you are using the proper tool bit for this. These take Torx bits. There's one. Okay, so the knife is apart. Just for the sake of time, I just kind of fast forwarded that. But basically, on the top scale, we have 2 much smaller screws. All right, see little teeny tiny screws. Okay, and that's what attaches to the inside insert. All right, which has our locking mechanism. And then we have 2 larger body screws, and then our pivot screw. All right, so let's put that off to the side. All right, so there's a close-up. You can see the Omega spring. It kind of looks like it's in a funny position here. All right, so go ahead and, yeah, you see how it broke in the middle there. It was already kind of, cracked almost in half, but obviously after touching it, it completely broke. That's okay. We're going to carefully push this forward. All right, see how that came out? Put that off to the side. All right, so just a quick note, I ended up taking off the pocket clip completely because that covers the second screw that's on the back side. Okay, so you want to take off both body screws and then all 4 of the screws that are holding in this insert here. Okay, so now the back scale can come off. All right, this whole insert can come out. Have to wiggle it out a little bit. Oh, I still have the female side of the pivot screw. Let's pop that out. All right, so it goes over there with the pivot screw. So now we have our blade and washers. We have our entire insert here. You can see the broken part of the back Omega spring. So both Omega springs failed in this one. All right, put those off to the side. And the other side here, again, I'm just gonna pushing against this. There we go. So it pops off. Okay, very simple. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to take the proper side. All right, now if you look at this, you can figure out which one's which because this small hook is going to wrap around the post, and the other side that has a little piece that goes down is going to fit right into this bottom slot. Okay, so you can figure out pretty quickly just by looking at which one fits on which side. This is the back side right here. All right, so first thing I'm going to do is wrap this around the post here. All right, see how that's hooked around? And it's definitely tricky, and it's definitely trickier if you're doing this on camera here. But you want to push this. Oops, see how it got wrapped around there? All right, let's try this again. Now obviously you're building up spring tension. You just want to get that little piece into that little slot right there, but it's easier said than done. Pushing over. Nope, didn't get it. There we go. Okay. So you see how that popped into that slot? So now you want to do that on the other side. Alright, so here's the front side of the knife. Same deal. Take the small hook part, hook it around the posts, on the bottom. Alright, you can use your Torx bit to get this if you can't with your finger. You know, it's kind of help assist that or push that over. Alright, again, once you have it on there, you kind of want to make sure it's all the way on. Alright. And then same deal, I got to get this little end piece in that tiny little slot. All while trying not to pop out the other side. And it's round and fighting you, but and I just shot it across the room somewhere. I'll be back. I cannot believe that that just happened. I just spent about, I don't know, it had to have been close to an hour looking for this thing. I finally found it. What a huge pain. I use the little Olight. This is the old one I used to have my keys, the I1 something EOS. I don't know, teeny tiny. Well, let's see what it is now that I'm talking about it. It is the I1R EOS, but cool little flashlight. Worked totally fine to actually find the thing, which by the way was about 8 feet across the room underneath a little cart that I used to hold water. So we're back in business here. Absolutely ridiculous. This is where things get, you know, super frustrating. You're like, oh, this is really fun. My Omega springs came. Can't wait to put them in. Well, just be careful. That's all. All right, so let's try this again. Wrap this guy around the post. There was the easiest way to get it, because you could swing it around once you have it in there. All right. You can swing it around if it's the right direction. Let's flip that over. Try again. All right. Now, let me just stop for a second and say, at this point, if you're as frustrated as I am, what you really should be doing is just taking a break, walk away from it, and come back later. Because when you work on things and you're really frustrated, you tend to mess up a lot more. But anyway, this should pop right in, and it did. Okay. So there it is. Make sure that is in the channel. Make sure it's wrapped around there very securely. Flip it over, go back to the other one. Make sure, same deal, and they both look nice and secure. Okay, so that's the hard part. Now I just gotta put it back together. So first thing you want to do is put this insert back into your knife. All right, make sure everything's lined up. And it pops in there, okay. Okay, what you did. And you want to take those teeny tiny little screws and put those back into the frame. Make sure that you're locked in. All right, on that insert. So there's one, and these are teeny tiny and fragile, so just be careful not to strip them. All right, whoops, that one's upside down. I might just fast forward this part. You're just putting the knife back together at this point. I know some people like to see all those little parts. In the beginning, I kind of, taking it apart, I fast forwarded just to make things easier because I didn't think this would be a long video. But apparently it is. It's actually more than an hour long. I just didn't think you guys would want to hear me cursing and crawling around my floor there. All right, so the back two are secure. All right. Now you want to slide in your blade. Make sure you have both of your washers. When people take knives apart, the biggest mistake is taking a blade out and a washer falling on the table and not knowing, and then you put it back together and you find the washer later. That is a huge pain in the butt, so then you have to take it apart again. Okay, so make sure that is in there. You can put your female side of the pivot screw back in. All right, rotate that around until you find, I believe these have a flat spot. They do. Okay, back again. That took about 5 minutes. Again, really should walk away when you're frustrated. But finally got the female side of the pivot screw in. All right, it's a little tricky. There is a flat side. Okay, so it only goes in one way, and this obviously prevents the female part from turning when you're turning the top pivot screw. Okay, but obviously this has to go through the frame, has to go through the locking mechanism, has to go through the first washer, through the blade, through the second washer, through the other side of the locking piece, and fit flush on the back. All right, so closing the blade helped a little bit, and then obviously moving the lock a little up and down also helped, okay, because it kind of wiggled things around a little bit. But we're finally there, so we're making some progress here. All right, so now we want to put in our back spacer, okay? All right, make sure that's going to be lined up properly. And then, of course, our top scale. All right, now putting this through, you probably want to do, before I even mess around with that back spacer, excuse me, and where it is, I want to put those tiny little screws in to make sure the front scale locks up with the locking system, okay? That's the first thing I'm going to do. Just make sure those are secured. There's one. Teeny tiny little screws. All right. Let's try putting it on the head of our tool instead. Makes it a little bit easier. Okay. So now our scales are firmly attached to the actual locking mechanism. All right, so now I'm going to pop the pivot screw back on. All right, make sure you go back and forth, by the way, because I'm using two different size bits. So I've done that before where I was doing a body screw and then went to use a pivot. And I'm like, why is this not turning? Well, it's the wrong screwdriver, right? Wrong bit. But anyway, when you're putting your pivots back in, this is when you might want to consider putting more Loctite on. Okay, so this is not totally tightened down. We're doing a quick functionality test. Okay, seems to work fine. Knife closed, knife open, no blade play at all. So last thing I have to do is line up this back spacer properly and put in those body screws. So that looks lined up. And yes, all right. Finally getting somewhere here. Okay, so that's nice and secure. Back here, that's nice and tight. Our knife is almost put back together. Test that lock. All right, it does have a good spring action to it. Let me back the camera out a little bit. All right, and we are good. Playing around with the pivot screw could be a little bit frustrating. And again, this is where that Loctite comes into play, because if you tighten your screw all the way down, it's going to be really snug and you're not going to be able to, you know, easily flick your knife open and shut. So that's where you have to kind of play around a little bit with the tension on that screw. However, if you loosen it to a point where, okay, it's perfect, but the actual screw is not tight, with use, it might rotate and get a little bit looser. All right, so that's where the Loctites really get a hold that exact position that you want. So, functionality tests, flicks open. There's no blade play at all in any direction. I have it a little bit more on the snug side, so like you can see in closing, it's not always going to completely close. If I just use the axis lock to swing it closed, I need a little bit more wrist to do that, but that's totally fine. I don't really care. And then obviously you could throw your pocket clip back on. Okay, so after inspecting the knife, I made a discovery, and that is that these body screws are not the same length. This one screw is longer, which goes on the very end. Okay, and the middle body screw is shorter because of that cutout. All right, so I'm trying not to move. Where is this? Oh, there it is. Doesn't help having a Halloween background here when you're dealing with little screws. Probably I have one of those little magnetic trays I should have grabbed for this project, but anyway, that's a good little tidbit here for the 940. All right, just like afterwards inspecting it, I saw the screw is sticking out on the middle. So you can see this is obviously a lot thinner in the middle and fatter on the end because there's no cutout on the end. It's the flat part. All right, so those body screws are two different lengths. But anyway, so now that I figured that out, it's time to put on the pocket clip. Now make sure when you're ready to put the pocket clip on, you put it on the proper orientation for your liking. All right, I've definitely done this before where I took a pocket clip off and put it back on the left side instead of the right side. So, you know, I want it like this, right side carry, tip up. So just be conscious of that. All right, we are finally done. Fully functional knife. Flicks open fine. The tension, obviously those springs, you can see how it works now in case you didn't know. But those springs, the purpose of it is to keep this axis lock in the upward position at all times when you're not actually disengaging it. Okay, so you push down to unlock it, but when you let go, it has to push all the way up in order to create that lock. Okay, so there's no blade play at all in any directions. And then you can obviously disengage it and close the knife. So yeah, we're back in business with this one. This is super, super frustrating. You know, I've experienced this so many times. I mean, I've taken apart probably hundreds of knives, maybe not hundreds and hundreds, but I've taken apart over 100 knives. I'll very comfortably say that. And I would say more than half of them did not go smoothly. I love to say that, yeah, it's easy to just take it apart and put it back together. It's not. Some people are more, I don't know, they're just better at it. They're naturally mechanical, I suppose, and take things apart and they can really understand what's going on and quickly see that and put it back together, and it's no problem at all. Whereas some people just don't have that talent, and I'm one of those people. So more times than not, it is frustrating. I do drop screws and parts and springs go flying across the room like it just did. That was incredibly frustrating. After an hour of crawling around and looking through things, it makes you very frustrated and aggravated, and then what happens again is you go back to your project and then you start screwing up other things even more. So try to step away if you can. In this case, I'm filming it, so I just wanted to get it done, especially after an hour of looking for the thing. But yeah, just take your time. I mean, the best thing you can really do is take pictures, okay? If you take one, I mean, you don't have to take a picture for each screw, but once you take the screws out, when you lift off that handle for the knife, make sure it's flat too. Don't be doing this in your hand or whatever. Make sure it's nice and flat on the table. When you take that scale off, take a picture of it. So at least you'll remember, you can reference that picture later to see how the parts were inside of it. So that is all. Should be a very easy fix. Easy for some people, not so much other people. And I don't even know where that thing went. I was just going to show you the broken Omega springs. So there you go. There are the two broken Omega springs. You know, I maybe should have compared, because I know sometimes people get these aftermarket springs and they're actually just a touch thicker and maybe more robust. I don't really know. If this looked like it was really frustrating and something you don't want to do, by all means, just send this back to Benchmade and they'll take care of it. The only reason you would do this yourself is to save yourself time. Some people don't want to wait, you know, a couple weeks for the knife to get back to them. So, you know, if you want to order the springs and wait 2 or 3 days for shipping and then just do it yourself, and it'll probably take you 5 minutes if you do it right. For me, it took me more like an hour and a half. But even an hour and a half is a lot faster than obviously having to wait for Benchmade. So, and don't forget too, if you're paying $6 or $7 for springs, even in my case with tax and shipping and everything, it was like, I don't know, $10 or $11, something around there. I would have already spent about $8 in shipping. Shipping just went up, by the way, unfortunately. I do a lot of trading, so shipping, how much shipping cost really matters to me. I mean, I send hundreds and hundreds of packages every single year. It just went up. The small flat rate box, USPS priority mail, is now like $8.05. So, I mean, I would have spent $8 on shipping to get it to them. So, you know, a couple of dollars more and just have it done in an hour and a half, even though it's frustrating, is the better option for me. And that's why I decided to do this. I'm sure, I didn't check, but I'm sure there's tons and tons of videos on YouTube on, you know, how to change out Omega springs. Not necessarily this specific knife, but I'm sure all different types of Benchmades, because I use them in so many different models. But anyway, hopefully this was somewhat educational, and if not, hopefully it was a little entertaining. So there you go. Hopefully you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you tomorrow with a brand new video. Take care.